Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
On the agenda today, security, the NHS, Brexit, housing and whatever else our audience of around 120 people want to talk about. It was 41 days ago that Theresa May surprised pretty much everyone by announcing a snap general election. Campaigning was suspended last week, as you know, after Manchester's devastating terrorist attack, which killed 22 people. Since then, security has dominated the agenda, with Labour and the Conservatives at the weekend both promising to bolster counter-terrorism measures. I want to get a snapshot view, really, from some of the voters here. In the light of what happened in Manchester a week ago, is anybody going to change their vote? Morning. Hi.
Hi, my name's Charlie. I'm from Luton. I run a small business here, and I've lived in England for 30 years. At the last election, I voted Conservative. Following the Manchester bombing and the subsequent talks between the parties, I'm now looking at, I don't want to carry on with the policy of bombing Middle Eastern countries and then trying to defend ourselves with security services here. It's plainly not working, and Jeremy Corbyn is starting to cut through with me that there could be another way, and I'm really interested on what Labour are saying about this.
Okay. Do put your hands up, ladies and gents. Do put your hands up. Yes. Anybody else who is changing their vote as a result of the events of last week?
No, I'm not.
You're not?
I'm not changing my vote, but I want to contribute to the debate on terrorism and, and security. Now,
can I ask what you were planning to vote? What you are planning to vote?
I was always planning to vote Labour, and I will vote Labour.
Okay, all right. And how do you think the parties have responded? What's your view of the way the parties have responded since the events of last Monday? They have responded expectedly. Everybody has come out and condemned it. But my regret as a Muslim and as a British citizen is this, that the policies in this area of our community life have not been working. And the evidence is there in one form or another in shape of Manchester and in shape of other arrests and prosecutions which are being taken against people who are involved in terrorism. What would you want to see change? What's the one thing that you would want to see change?
What I would like to see is that a medium to long-term project of integration for Muslim communities is developed and promoted, and that could be done through talking to imams, community activists, and directly with Muslim communities, and making it known to them that their voices are very weak in condemning extremism. They need to be more strong, and they need to be more obvious and clear. With this stand.
Thank you. Lady over here. Hi, do introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. After Manchester, I've actually bought tickets for a Robbie Williams concert for my son for a birthday treat. My main reaction was instantly just to tell him not to go. The youngsters have got the attitude we're not going to be stopped by these people, more so than perhaps slightly older people, so we've got to give them that. But security needs to be looked into. We need more police officers as a first line back on the streets, and in strategic places we need armed officers, not just a bobby on the beat.
Okay. Have you changed the way you're going to vote as a result of last week's events?
No, I was heading towards Labour, and over the last week, from what I've heard, it will probably still be Labour.
Okay. Thank you. Hi. Good morning. Do introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Doreen Steinberg. I've been a campaigner for democracy in Luton for the last 3.5 years. The discrimination in different areas. I still would vote Conservative. I wouldn't change my mind because I think Theresa May would stand up for us, and I think if she gets a good vote, she should come out the next day and let Europe go to hell.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you. Hello.
Hello, I'm Derek. I'm a father and a husband from Luton. On the basis of police, 10,000 new police officers, Jeremy Corbyn's promised, but where's this money coming from? Diane Abbott comes out, figures all over the place. It's a good idea. But are the figures going to change with a hairstyle?
That is a reference to an interview that Diane Abbott, Shadow Home Secretary, gave yesterday where she talked about her hairstyle. And they've changed over the... No, her hairstyle hasn't... I can't remember which way around it was. It was... Anyway, let me bring in our politicians who are here this morning. Dominic Raab for the Conservatives, former Justice Minister. Your Home Secretary seemed to suggest in a newspaper interview yesterday that this country would face a greater risk of a terrorist atrocity if Jeremy Corbyn were Prime Minister. Do you agree with her?
Yes, I think that's true. Look, there's a range... Well, let me answer the question. There's a range of things we've said we're going to do. We've increased counter-terrorism police. We're bringing in almost 2,000 more into the intelligence agencies. And we've talked a lot about the more vigorous policing and monitoring of the online space and also prosecuting UK-based jihadis that go out into the battlefield abroad. But I do think leadership matters, and I put it as bluntly as I can, or as candidly as I can to this audience. I don't think if you compare the leadership Theresa May offers, 5 years Home Secretary, calm, vigorous defence of our security, with Jeremy Corbyn, who's had a political lifetime of supporting the IRA. In 2009, he described Hamas and Hezbollah members as his friends. Okay. I don't think the guy that wants to cosy up and befriend the terrorists is the right guy to defend us against the terrorists.
Well, you could hear some of the groans in the audience there. Hi.
Hi, my name's Terry and I'm from Luton. I just want to challenge you straight away. Firstly, if it hadn't been for Jeremy Corbyn talking about Northern Ireland, talking with the IRA back in the day, there would be no peace process.
Oh, come on.
He opened the door. And by the way, Margaret Thatcher was doing backdoor deals. Anyway, what really annoys me about you Conservatives and your Tory media, the day after Manchester, it was there. Jeremy Corbyn's got blood on his hands. You want to talk about blood on someone's hands? Theresa May is selling weapons to the Saudis who are dropping them on kids in Yemen. Now, if Jeremy Corbyn's got blood on his hands, Theresa May's bathing in blood.
Okay. You talked about, Dominic Raab, you talked about leadership. Yeah. Theresa May, as we know, was leading the Home Office when she cut 20,000 police officers, cut 1,300 armed officers, cut 26,000 support staff and community support officers. Has that had an impact on officers' ability to build trust within communities and therefore intelligence gather at local level?
Well, look, in terms of ordinary crime, it's down by...
No. I'm asking specifically, Victoria, about intelligence gathering at local level.
Well, in terms of counter-terrorism police, the numbers have gone up.
I'm not asking about counter-terrorism police. Well, I'm asking about the 20,000 fewer police officers, the 1,300 fewer armed officers, and the 26,000 fewer support staff. And the question is, do you think that's had an impact on building trust within communities and intelligence gathering at local level?
I think you've always got to focus finite resources. No, I don't think it's a simple question of just pouring in more resources.
So it's had... No, it's not about pouring in more resources, it's about cutting resources, with respect.
You've interrupted me every time I'm trying to make...
Because you're not answering the question.
Well, let me try and answer it.
Go for it.
People will judge it. The bottom line is we've invested more in counter-terrorism police. You could always want
Are you saying that those cuts have had no impact?
Victoria, come on. You could always say you'd
like
to have more police on the street. But the reason I pointed to ordinary crime is because it shows that actually with finite public resources, actually we can focus our resources and get better outcomes in terms of cutting crime and cutting terrorism. But what you also need is leadership. And it's all very well this gentleman here saying that Jeremy Corbyn was somehow John the Baptist leading us to peace in Northern Ireland. But the reality is, just last Friday, he couldn't be honest if he was that proud of his achievements about meeting convicted IRA members. And by Sunday, we knew he had. I don't think that's the kind of straight-talking politician we need to lead us. And I don't think someone that is so keen to get close and cosy up to convicted terrorists, or indeed Hezbollah and Hamas members, is the right person to protect this country from terrorism.
Emily Thornberry for Labour. Jeremy Corbyn has expressed support for what people describe as Britain's enemies, referred to Hamas as friends, associated with Gerry Adams within weeks of the Brighton bombing. That is a problem for Labour and his leadership, isn't it?
Jeremy's approach is a clear one, which is that we need to talk to people when we can talk to them. in order to try to find common ground, in order to try to find a way forward with people. Now, there are some organisations like Daesh that you couldn't talk to.
Do you accept that his past associations mean he's got a problem when it comes to national security?
I really think that for fair-minded people that's not true. I think people know that he was representing a community that had a very high proportion of Irish people. I think that in the 1980s there was, something had to be done, and he was involved in trying to bring people to the table. As has already been said, so was the Conservative government, but they were doing it secretly. He was always doing it openly, and he was trying to find common paths. And look what happened. We got the Good Friday Agreement. Now, as I say, you can't do it with Daesh, because Daesh is just a death cult. There is no negotiations with guys like that. But where you can find common purpose, then work with people and don't be afraid.
And when people point out that Jeremy Corbyn and your Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott have both voted against or not turned up for almost every vote there's ever been since 2001 when it comes to anti-terror legislation, why should people trust your party to protect the country?
One of the things that Diane was saying yesterday, a lot of these votes were ones where the Conservatives voted in the same way as Diane and Jeremy Corbyn in any event, and the question really is...
No, the question is, why should people trust Labour when it comes to national security?
Because the approach that Labour takes is, let's look at legislation that works. Let's look at legislation that doesn't divide communities but brings them together. Now, if there are things that the security services need, then by way of legislation, then absolutely we should give it to them. But we don't just do things for the sake of being seen to do things. I voted against 90 days where people were to be arrested on the basis of no evidence particularly and being held for 3 months, and then later I voted against 42 days. I am proud of that because I think that would have divided our communities and wasn't going to help with fighting terrorism.
Over here. Hello. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tina from Milton Keynes.
Do you move the microphone a little bit closer, Tina?
Is now not the time for all our parties to come together and have a cross-party coalition so that we can sort the security of our country out, so we look after everybody? We've lost and we've had murdered in our country this week, innocent children. Their future's been wiped out. Why can't our parties now come together and form a really strong strategy moving forward and be quite tough on how we move forward with terrorism?
Over here. Hi.
I'm Aziz from London. This is just a question for Emily. I hear what you're saying in terms of Jeremy Corbyn's approach is to talk to these people, but what I want to know is how would that conversation go? Because the terrorists that you're talking about, they're not forthcoming people. They're not people you sit down on a table and have a conversation and a cup of tea with. They are dangerous. They are dangerous. They are, they're a detriment to the whole country. They're a detriment to the whole world. So how do you expect that conversation to go when you sit down and talk to them?
That's the point I was trying... I agree with you, Aziz. That was the point I was trying to make to Victoria a bit earlier, which is that there are some people that you can talk to. So we had to find a way through with Northern Ireland and what the future of Northern Ireland was. The problem with Islamic State or Daesh or whatever it's called is that all they want to do is attack our way of life. You don't talk to people who simply say, if girls wear miniskirts, we're going to blow them up. There is no talking to people like that. So it depends who it is that you talk to. So when people try to drag us back to the 1980s and say it was wrong for Jeremy Corbyn to speak to the Irish, I think that is an entirely different situation, and that's why people are playing party political games with this.
Would you support a party that advocated talking to IS, Daesh?
Absolutely not, because they're not to be spoken to. So they're not going to have a conversation.
Do you think they will be defeated in the end militarily?
That's very hard to say. I don't think they will be defeated militarily, but I don't think talking to them is the solution to is the solution to this problem.
Thank you, gentleman here. Hello.
Good morning, everyone. I am Roger, the Remainer from Brexit West Midlands. Jeremy Corbyn has always been an ally of terrorists. All he's doing at the moment is trying to keep a lid on it. I believe, if I remember correctly, he brought Gerry Adams to the Houses of Parliament within a short while after the Brighton bombing. He's trying to keep a lid on what he really believes. The other point is,
I don't think the UK should ever go into another conflict with just the US as a partner.
Right. Can I ask you, Roger, which is the party you support to better protect this country?
In a nutshell, none of them.
Oh, okay. All right, let me bring in the Liberal Democrats.
Do you mind if I just answer that? Because
very briefly, please, and then I bring in the Lib Dems.
I think it's really unfair to try to paint Jeremy Corbyn as somebody who doesn't love this country as much as anyone else, who doesn't want to keep this country safe as much as anyone else.
Yeah. It hasn't always helped. You've got to admit that.
No, but I mean, I don't want to repeat myself. But where there have been, it's been possible to talk to people and find a way forward. That's what you do.
Okay.
I think that in relation to IS, of course, we cannot in the end defeat this death cult militarily. What we have to do is we have to make sure that we do not allow people to become marginalised. Those people who are becoming extreme, we need to make sure that we have a strategy
Let me bring in the Lib
country
Dems.
that works, that keeps us safe.
First of all, Lord Newby, your party were in government with the Conservatives when you allowed those cuts to police numbers go ahead. How do you plead?
Well, the big cuts in police numbers have been happening very recently.
No, since 2010 when you were in government.
We were having to make reductions across the board in 2010 because we inherited an absolute financial crisis. The question is what we do now about it.
Okay. Well, in your manifesto, you say you would reduce the state's surveillance powers and scrap the government's counter-radicalisation programme. How would that better protect people?
Well, the PREVENT programme, which is the programme you're talking about, is not totally successful because it's a top-down programme.
But would we be better protected without it?
Well, you don't just scrap it, you replace it with something else.
Okay.
And the thing you need to replace it with, as the gentleman over there said, you need more community engagement and you need to invest more, as we're proposing to do in this manifesto, in community policing. The Chief Inspector of Constabulary said that the community policing model is now under threat, and that's the easiest way to make sure that you protect our community.
Okay, let's hear from John Nicholson from the SNP and then Suzanne Evans from UKIP.
I think we should stop impugning one another's motives in this debate. I think it's an extraordinarily bad taste. We're in the immediate aftermath of this terrorist atrocity that has destroyed so many families' lives, and we're all of us in this audience are horrified by it. And all of our political leaders are determined to stop terrorism. So it seems to me it's in very bad taste for Dominic to try and use this in the way that he's doing, I have to say.
I'm pointing to records.
Because this is an old electoral trick. We've seen it in the United States. The Tories tend to do it at times of crisis, that somehow or other a Conservative government is going to keep us safe and a government of another hue is going to leave us all exposed to danger.
Okay, well,
it's nonsense. We're all patriots.
Well, I don't doubt that Jeremy Corbyn has in his own mind a set of values and intentions which are honourable.
We'll just leave it at that.
Sorry, no, I won't.
Leave it at that.
No, I don't think I will. I don't think I will. I don't think I will leave it at that. And I'll tell you why. Because in just 10 days' time, we're going to take a decision on who's going to lead this country. And it's not just the cozying up to some of these unsavoury groups. It's the fact that he...
You've said cozying five times now. We've got the cosy words.
Can I answer because you put the allegation of it. It's also the fact that he would actually... He's talked about disarming the police. It's also about when it comes to Islamic State...
Excuse me,
he said
hang on.
No, I won't hang on.
What do you mean?
If there's a possibility for a drone strike on an Islamic State leader with no civilian casualties, he said no, he's not sure he would do that. He'd want to go down a political route.
Okay,
there is a
let me
whole
bring in
string
Suzanne Evans from
of
UKIP.
instincts and motives that I think Jeremy Corbyn, you know, he may be a perfectly decent guy, but he's not the strong leader we need with the security context.
That he wanted to disarm.
I'm going to bring in Suzanne Evans from UKIP, if I may. Suzanne Evans, Deputy Chair of UKIP. At your manifesto launch last week, you said Theresa May must bear some responsibility for what happened in Manchester. Do you stand by that?
Yes, the gentleman at the very top of this programme said if it becomes to a choice between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn in keeping the country safe, both fail on their records. Jeremy's, I think we've heard
but what did you mean about Theresa
very
May,
eloquent. Well, as you said at the beginning yourself, actually, Victoria, under her rule as Home Secretary, there were deep, deep cuts to the police force. And I think community policing is very important because it's our community police officers who have their ear to the ground, who build those relationships with local communities and can actually spot discrepancies in information or people. They have the ear of the local people.
And do
that's
your policy
a serious problem that has been cut.
Your policy of wanting to ban the burqa, does that help better protect people?
You know, what it doesn't per se, but what it's about integration. I think the trouble that we have with this debate is that politicians are trying to put forward very simplistic solutions, and actually there aren't any.
And is banning the burqa a nuanced solution?
This is something that we have to tackle at numerous levels. We have to tackle it from a security perspective. At the very least, we have to make sure that we keep our people safe. That is the first job of government. We have to tackle it in terms, as the gentleman over here said, you know, actually integrating communities better. And I'm very pleased to hear you say, you know, some elements of the Muslim community do need to work harder at that. We need to look at immigration as well, because under a Labour government, we did open the borders to people who had very diverse views.
But the bomber from last week was British. He was born in Manchester.
That's his parents were refugees who came here fleeing Gaddafi. You know, I think
so we should have known that their offspring would end up.
I think his parents helped radicalise him without any doubt. Can I finish? My point is that there are numerous levels on which we need to actually attack this.
Okay.
And I totally agree with what a lot of people have said here. Politicians are trying to find simplistic solutions, and actually there aren't any, but integration is a significant one.
Hello.
You just said that integration is important, and yes, of course, I agree with that. But the notion of telling people what to wear, when to wear it, and how to wear it is ridiculous.
Okay, well,
that is absolutely ridiculous. If you want to talk about integration, talk about the success or the failure of the prevent and the challenge strategy. If these two are currently failing, how would you propose to change it effectively? Telling a person what to wear, where to wear it, and how to wear it isn't going to make a difference.
Okay, well, I'm very sorry to hear you say that.
Are you going to tell nuns that they can't walk around in black and white habits?
Nuns actually show their faces in a public place, so that's not the issue. You know, you're a very strong woman, and I'm sure in any other circumstance you would stand up.
Thank you very
Fantastic,
much.
Great. I'm very particularly pleased to hear that. But you know, there is.
Just
you
because
cannot doubt.
I'm here and speaking up.
You
Please don't judge me on whether I'm Muslim or not.
I'm not judging you at all. You cannot doubt that to cover your face and to cover yourself from head to foot in black, and to be told to do that and to have that is anything but emancipation for women.
If you're told to do that, I agree with you.
It is a symbol of
but
segregation.
there are many women out there who choose to do that.
Okay, any woman can stand up for that.
Can I just ask very quickly, because we haven't caught up on this. Where are you on the balaclava ban at the moment? Because if you wear that, are we still being banned from wearing balaclavas, or have you rode back from that?
Because that's on marches.
This is what happens, isn't it, in politics? Okay. This is why we have a problem in politics, because you try to make a serious point, and it is.
But that's not serious.
No, it's not.
That is not a serious question or a serious point.
We have women in our communities being abused in a way that a white middle-class woman like me would never happen.
Then call the
At least
police.
to be straight
Then
down
call
on
the
it.
police if
And
they're being abused.
we have, you know, people talked
Use the
about
law.
divided communities. There is nothing that divides communities more than the oppression of women.
Okay.
Unless you have emancipation of women in every community.
Let me remind our
what
audience watching around the country, we have John Nicholson here from the SNP, we have Emily Thornberry from Labour, we have Dominic Raab from the Conservatives, Suzanne Evans from UKIP, and Dick Newby from the Lib Dems. Yes, good morning. Do introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Zahir. I'm from Luton. I'm a postgraduate student at the University of Bedfordshire. I just want to kind of pick up on what Susanna said. I'm a British Muslim. The attacks recently I condemn, absolutely 100%. I don't think there's anyone in the room that disagrees with that. What I would say is that I integrate fully in this community. I embrace the way of life in the UK. And what I find quite distressing is how, yet again, from you, Susanna, you say the burqa, you know, the veil, is seen as something that is mandatory. You have to wear it.
No, I didn't say. I realise it's not. I mean, I think the Muslim women that I have spoken to, I don't think choice is quite as black and white as they might like to make out.
Well, I can say I've got many relatives that choose to wear the headscarf or the veil through their own choice.
So you've Suzanne Evans, sorry, Muslim women have said to you, I am being made to wear this.
Yes, they have. I've also spoken to Muslim women who wear it in certain circumstances because they feel that if they don't wear it in certain circumstances, where there are a lot of particularly Arab Muslim men around, that they will be viewed as somehow easy. You know, if I'm going to cover myself up because I don't want to be looked at or leered at by men, who's got the problem there, me or the men?
Okay. Just to say, the audience here in Dunstable, in Bedfordshire, is balanced to represent the number of people who voted for each party in previous general elections, as well as some undecided voters as well. Now, the Conservatives were accused of a U-turn on social care last week after Theresa May said under her plans there would now be a cap on how much people contributed to their own care costs. A change from the original policy published in the manifesto 4 days before. The NHS and social care is one of the issues that people most care about ahead of this election, and political parties know that, with all promising various degrees of extra funding.
We will introduce the first new mental health bill for 30 years to put parity of esteem at the heart of treatment and end the stigma of mental illness once and for all.
Our health service is actually being dismantled by stealth. Over the past 7 years, our National Health Service has been driven into crisis after crisis.
The Liberal Democrats will put 1 penny on income tax to raise 30 billion over a Parliament to invest in our National Health and Social Care Service so you get the treatment you deserve from cradle to grave.
So we have a commitment that by the end of this Scottish Parliament, the budget will be £2 billion higher than it is today, more than inflation. Money not just for hospitals, but for primary care, mental health services and community services as well.
We will have a clear commitment to slash a foreign aid budget that is costing the British taxpayer in the region of £30 million every single day. And we will redirect the money saved and plough it into our NHS.
Plaid Cymru wants guaranteed extra funding for our NHS after we leave the European Union. We've already secured an additional £20 million for mental health services here, but that is only the beginning.
It simply can't be right that big business is making money out of that mess. So as well as putting more finance into the NHS, the Green Party is really clear that we would take the private sector out of the NHS.
Who do you trust most when it comes to the NHS? Who do you trust? Which party do you trust to better protect your parents, your grandparents? Hi, good morning.
Hi, Scott. I work for a national charity. I want to talk actually about dementia. So 850,000 people in the UK currently have a diagnosis of dementia. Only about 2/3 of those actually get any support because 1/3 are undiagnosed. It costs £32,500 per annum per person, and it costs the UK economy £26.3 billion a year in dementia. What I want to know is actually, what are you going to do for those people, and how are you going to make it fair and sustainable funded system rather than just causing a tax on people who have a long-term condition what affects their whole life? People as young as 30 are getting dementia, and frankly, Mr. Rabb, I'm glad Theresa May did a U-turn, but it's about time you scrapped that policy altogether, went back to the drawing board and started again talking to people who understand it rather than just in your own little fantasy world picking figures out there what you think actually works. Okay. Talk to people on the ground.
We'll get responses from our politicians once we've taken a snapshot from our voters. Hi.
Hi, my name is Laura and I live in Dunstable. I actually think that the Tory proposed policy is eminently fair. Both of my parents have recently had to go into a care home and are having to sell their house to fund that care. They would have probably preferred to stay at home but could not have afforded to do that with the current policy as it stands because the level of care they required just wouldn't be covered by their savings. So I think that the policy is fair, that with the protected £100,000, I can't see what's unfair, and I'd like to know what the Labour Party are going to do to throw magic money beans at the problem. I don't know.
We'll ask them in just a moment. I mean, there's going to be a cap now, Lauren. As you know, Theresa May said 4 days later there will be an absolute limit on the care costs that people would pay. Do you agree with that then or not?
Well, I'd like to know what that is, because that doesn't seem to be decided. So I quite agree with the fact that there is going to be a discussion on that.
Would you like to know before the election what that cap is?
Well, I probably would quite like to know, but that's not going to change my vote. I'm going to vote Tory because I don't think the Labour Party will have the money to pay for anything.
Okay. Hi, good morning.
Hi, I'd like to talk about social care. I mean, we've worked all our lives to buy our house and bring our children up and educate them. We don't think that the current policy that the Conservatives have put forward in their manifesto is fair, and the cap I would like to see considered to be a percentage cap rather than just a cap somewhere along the line. And I do wonder how on earth the care companies, the caregivers, are going to afford to provide the care if you don't pay your fee from your house sale when you die.
Okay. Were you worried about potentially after your death your house being taken from you?
No, it's good. I mean, I don't mind paying for my care.
Right.
I've worked all my life to pay for our later life. But I do think that the way that they've put forward this proposal has been ill thought out.
Okay. Hi. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Denise. I'm from Milton Keynes. I'm a retired public sector worker, currently working with a health charity, and I'm a carer for 2 of my adult children who have physical and mental health problems. I have struggled and continue to struggle to find appropriate and timely care. This complete nonsense by the Conservative Party, that parity of esteem, extra funding for mental health, it's not ring-fenced, so the clinical commissioning groups are using it wherever. And how can you blame them when their funding has been drastically cut? As a carer, I'm supposed to have a carer's assessment. The carers people have been cut staff from 4 to 1, so I've got ages to wait before I even get an assessment. As far as physical health goes, in this area we're part of a sustainable transformation scheme that most people don't know about. It's nationwide, there are 44 of them. Milton Keynes is being linked with Luton and Dunstable and Bedford. Make no mistake, it's for cuts. In our region, maternity and A&E is up for grabs. 1 of us or 2 of us are going to lose those services. What that means is your loved one is going to have a half-hour ambulance journey to the nearest A&E. That's once the ambulance finally gets there.
Okay.
Hi.
Thank you. Good morning. Do introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Takachi Pango. I've lived in England for 22 years. Run a care home in Luton, looking after people with learning difficulties. My question is to the Labour government, well, not the Labour, the prospective, well, they think they would.
We know what you mean. We know what you mean.
Because I know what the Conservatives have done since 2010. They've cut social funding to the local authorities. I look after clients, and we are expected to, with the living wage that came in, we are supposed to pay staff, but the funding for looking after the service users had not been increased. The central government has cut the funding, and I would want to know the other parties, what is it that they are proposing to make sure that the funding is provided, and where they are going to get the money from.
Let's ask them. Let's ask them. In terms of NHS and social care, Emily Thornberry, you're in total promising the most over the next 5 years. But in your manifesto, you actually say short-term funding solutions for social care will not address the fundamental long-term challenges of our ageing demographic. And then you propose a short-term funding solution with little or no thought about the long-term solution.
Well, let's take it step by step. So, I mean, without a doubt, I mean, obviously our country our populations are changing.
Yeah,
we're getting older and we're living longer, and
yeah.
there needs to be proper thought put into what our long-term solutions will be in relation to social care, particularly for the elderly. It is not right for a political party to call a snap election and then have a snap solution to social care, which is pulled out of a hat by Theresa May and a couple of her advisors in number 10.
Well, those who supported her plan said at least she was trying to come up with something sustainable instead of, as somebody suggested over here, Lauren it was, saying, you know, getting money from the magic money tree.
I was a shadow social care minister, and I remember after the election in 2010, going into number 10, and we were supposed to be doing cross-party talks. And we were serious about trying to come together as two political parties to find a solution to long-term care. And we got nothing but the runaround from the Tories, and in the end, they pulled out of those negotiations. The important thing that we recognise is that for every £1 spent on social care, you save 10 in terms of the National Health Service. We cannot have elderly people going in to A&E in crisis because they have fallen over and there is not someone looking after them. And then for them not to be able to go home because there isn't the support for them in their homes.
Lord Newby, when your party were in government with the Conservatives from 2010, you cut £4.6 billion from social care. How much has that contributed to the crisis we see today?
Well, I think the question for today...
No. That's the question I've just asked you.
Well, this is the second time you've asked me a question about what happened when we were in coalition, to which the answer is the same. We entered coalition...
I'm asking you, how much has it contributed to the crisis today?
Yes. It, undoubtedly, the cuts in social care, which were started a number of years ago, have contributed to the problems we face today. So the question is, what do we do about it? We have said that we need to put a very specific tax proposal that funds social care and health before people. And that's why we're saying there should be a penny on income tax so that you ring-fence money going into health and social care that's sustainable in the short term, i.e. the next Parliament, but thereafter you have a dedicated health and social care tax based on national insurance. Everybody pays in, everybody benefits.
Yes or no, just loudly, yes or no. The Lib Dems are proposing 1p on income tax. Is that something you would support? Yes. No, okay. There are more yeses than nos. Money to go to the NHS. Yeah. Dominic.
No, but you certainly can't have a solution without money. There may be other things you need to do, but there's no doubt you need the money as well.
Dominic Raab, what did you think of Theresa May's capitulation on the social care plan, which was published in the manifesto, and then she changed it a few days later?
Well, funnily enough, I wouldn't have characterised it as capitulation, but I do take the point the gentleman made.
How would you describe it?
Well, let me answer the question. I do take the point the gentleman made about Alzheimer's and dementia. In 10 years' time, we're going to have 2 million more over 75s. This is a massive burning social issue. And what we've tried to do is come up and grapple with the issue on 3 principles. One, if you can afford to contribute to your own care, actually that's an important principle. But there are 2 safeguards. You'll never have those assets or income come down below a level that you can't give £100,000 to your family. And also, we would have a second safeguard, which is a cap on costs. And the point about this...
But that's what I'm asking you. The cap came 4 days after the manifesto.
I'm trying to put it in the round rather than picking out one bit of it so people can see the whole package. And what we've said is we're going to consult on that. And the reason being, someone always pays for this. And when people say the state should step in, it's taxpayers who will receive an increase in income tax. I don't think the Lib Dem plan is credible, but I respect the fact that they're trying to do it. We're the only ones who have set out a credible, financially solvent way of dealing with this issue. And Emily has spent her whole response, to the gentleman's question, not setting out what Labour's position is. That's why we're getting the brickbats on this, because people can see.
We're the ones with the costed manifesto. How many numbers have you got in the manifesto?
No one.
Nothing else.
Emily,
you have no costings in your manifesto at all.
You sound like Comical Ali defending the
Where is the £8 billion that you claim you're going to put into the National Health Service going to come from?
You have none. You haven't to the highest level of tax in 70 years.
Okay, well, let's just deal with what the IFS has said. Where will the £8 billion come for the NHS?
Well, what we said is we'll have real-term increases each year,
Where will it come from?
Rising to at least £8 billion the last year. Well, look, we've said things like means testing the winter fuel payment.
Is that going to pay for
The IFS said that would be...
But we don't take... The whole thing is...
Where's the level on the winter fuel
Emily, I think this is Victoria's show. The clue's in the name.
Where is the...
I'll come back to you in a minute and we'll ask about your
We've
plans.
set out a whole range of tough decisions. That's why we're getting the stick about this. Winter fuel...
So the winter fuel allowance will pay for the 8 billion?
No, but we haven't... You don't go into a budget and hypothecate each saving to the amount that goes in. You look at the package as a whole.
Well, that's what you expect the other parties
No,
to do.
no. What I would expect is overall you've got a sensible package on the public finances. You're trying to ease the burden, as we are, on lower middle income families.
So, you've some savings from the winter fuel
We've
allowance.
also taken... Well, I'm giving you an illustration of the difficult decisions, like saying that we wouldn't be subsidising free school lunches for well-off parents. We don't think that that's the right thing to do. We'd rather the money went into teaching and NHS. Yes, but we've found that we've made the difficult decisions.
Does that all add up to 8 billion?
Well, I think if you've got to look at the savings in the round. So we're taking difficult decisions like, well,
right.
actually...
Let me bring in...
Can I answer the lady?
Because we mentioned the IFS. The IFS is the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies. They have suggested that your plans to raise something like £49 billion in taxes, you have miscalculated. And they think, having worked it all out, it will be about 41 billion. So there's a big shortfall there. So when you promise people billions and tens of billions for the NHS and social care, actually you won't be able to raise that money.
What we've said to the IFS is that we think that they're not being sufficient. They're being very pessimistic about this. That actually we think that our measures will work, and we're quite happy to talk to them about it. There is within our manifesto there is room for us having underestimated the amount that we might raise in taxation. So we're quite happy to engage with them. We're quite happy to talk to them. And do you know what we would also like to do with our manifesto? We would like the Office of Budget Responsibility, which is a government body, which we said this about our previous manifesto and we said about this one. We say there's always going to be fights about this. Let the OBR look at our manifesto.
The IFS have done that. And you don't like what they've come up with, so you dismiss it.
No.
Let me bring in...
Well, the Office of Budget Responsibility is given this as its job, and we've said we're quite happy to engage with either the IFS or the OBR, but let them look at both manifestos and let them see whether it works or not. And
okay. John Nicholson, nurses in Scotland have had a cap on their pay since 2008. Health is devolved. Why haven't you removed that cap by now and given them a pay rise?
Well, nurses, what the Scottish Government has done is meet the independent peer review body's recommendations on every single occasion.
So they don't deserve a pay rise?
They absolutely deserve a pay rise.
So remove the cap and give them one?
Well, I think that would be a good thing to do, actually. And I do
Is that going to be in your manifesto?
I do think we should... let's wait and see what's in the manifestos. As you know, parties and MPs get into trouble if they leak bits of their manifesto in advance. But it's important to say that nurses in Scotland get paid more than nurses in England, and we have implemented the peer review body.
A nurse in Scotland told your leader, Nicola Sturgeon, last week that she had to use food banks. Is that acceptable?
No nurse should go to food banks.
Of course nurses shouldn't go to food banks. That goes without saying. And I don't know the details of that nurse's case, so it's difficult for me to comment on her particular circumstances. But I'm quite keen to know, because I felt we left that discussion without quite understanding from Dominic what the cap was going to be for people suffering from dementia. And I still don't know the answer. He said he'll consult about the dementia tax, but I still don't know what that means. And for a lot of people who are scared about their assets and scared about their future, they want facts when they enter the general election. These guys are the ones who say that they're going to negotiate a good Brexit deal for us, and they can't even give a simple answer to this very simple question.
We can. We said we want to consult on what the cap should be. We want to listen, as the gentleman said, listen to some of the experts in the field about this.
And after you stop listening, what will it be?
Why don't you do a bit of listening? Because the question here is the balance between what the taxpayer pays, which inevitably means taxes going up, or what individuals contribute. And that is a very sensitive, finely balanced issue. And we could do it on a fag packet, but we're not going to do that. So we're going to say to you, these are the basic principles. We've put more detail into our plan than any of the others have done. And yes, on that aspect of it, the cap on costs, we'll go and consult. So we can listen to the gentleman.
Okay, I'm going to hear from some more voters. Good morning, hello.
Sarah, and I'm a carer from West London, and I think people should know what it's actually like on the ground. There are 6.5 million of us caring unpaid. 800,000 of us get carers allowance. I care for my 2 young adult children who have complex medical needs. I'm caring 168 hours a week. That is through the night. I have 2 to 3 hours broken sleep every night. That means I'm earning 37 pence an hour. I have been in a 4-year war with social services. Yes, I've just had my carers assessment. I did it myself 4 times. They've ignored it and got it incorrect 4 times. And they are going to give me 3 hours respite a week, for which point they tell me that I'll be able to go to the cinema. So I do a handover to my carer, newly employed, for half an hour. I then leave, get the bus to Richmond, get there. And so what do? Watch the adverts and then come home and do another half-hour handover with a
Can I ask you, is there a party that you think is going to help you and your family when it comes to this issue?
Definitely Labour. There is no way the Conservatives are doing any good at all.
And are you happy with where they say they're going to get the money from in order to put into the NHS and social care?
Yes, and at least they're looking at carers' allowance and going to raise it by £10, which at least brings us up to what unemployment benefit is. At the moment, we're paid less than unemployment benefit.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, my name's Andy. I'm from Dunstable, and I'm with you here, my wife. I've been with my wife for 17 years, and she suffers mental health problems. 17 years ago, everything was working out all right. The hospitals dealt really well. We had good staff. Now, it's deteriorated so much, the police have to arrest her to protect the hospital. There's no way she can just walk in and get help. We have to get the police round to get her committed now for help. It's ridiculous.
That is shocking. That is absolutely shocking.
I will pay more money so she gets looked after.
Yeah. Okay. Suzanne Evans from UKIP, you too are saying you will put more money into the NHS and social care, 11 billion by 2022, to be paid for how?
Well, you know, the money is there. This is what annoys me so much about this debate. UKIP has a 35 billion spending pot, and we have that without raising a single... I'm just about to tell you. We have that without putting a single penny on taxes. We scrap HS2. This viciously expensive vanity project. We get rid of that. We save 5 billion by the end of the Parliament. We are going to use the money that, of course, we get back from when we leave the European Union in 2 years' time, with a little bit of luck. We're going to cut the foreign aid budget, so we're paying on a par with the United States of America, 0.2% of GNI instead of 0.7% of GNI. And that's mostly, you could say that all of that money, that's £11 billion from that particular pot alone that could help fund the NHS and social care. And we've heard the stories around this room today, how desperate it is. And dementia was the first thing that we talked about. Our plans, we're going to have a national dementia plan. This is so desperately needed to get all the expertise together. We'll fund that to the tune of £400 million a year. So we get research, we get treatment, we get the best in British dementia funding and research on board. Mental health, the woman behind me talked about mental health, about how that pot isn't ring-fenced. That's so wrong. We know that clinical commissioning groups are using it to backfill cuts. They're using it on other services. And we've got to invest more in mental health and give it the real parity that it deserves.
Lady here, hello, good morning.
Hello, I'm Fiona from Aberdeen. I'm a disability activist primarily. There's all this talk, you're all talking about numbers and money, and there is an ocean of suffering under that. Oxford University just released research saying that in 2015 alone, in England and Wales alone, there were 30,000 excess deaths caused by cuts to health and social care. Tens of thousands of disabled and sick people are dying every year. We are dying. There have been hundreds of suicides. I spent 48 hours after the last general election trying to talk people out of killing themselves, and I didn't always succeed. People are dying here, and nobody cares. I have friends who have been helping resettle disabled people in Scotland, because at the very least we have a Scottish Parliament which is trying its best with limited funds to protect people against the worst of these cuts. People have been fleeing England for their lives. We have an NHS that's stretched, but it works. But we are, with With the work capability assessment, Napier University and Harriet Watt just released evidence about how it causes almost universal permanent mental health damage. It kills people. I have friends who were institutionalized after going through it. It is an act of violence. And we are dying. And this election is life or death for us. And anybody who votes for the Conservative Party who are going to further these cuts, who are going to keep on with these cuts, they are complicit in those deaths.
All right, well, let Dominic Raab. Let the Conservatives, Dominic Raab, respond to you.
There's plenty of heartrending stories here, and no one could be anything other than moved by it. We are putting in...
Would you like to turn around and just put... She's literally sitting behind you.
We have put 11,000 more doctors into the NHS, 12,000 more nurses. We have got a renewed... Hold on. We have got a renewed focus on mental health and also trying to make sure we take the pressure off big hospitals in the manifesto. But the raw truth is, the money's got to come from somewhere, and it's very easy.
Let him respond.
It's very easy, and I can think of lots of things that I would like to avoid making difficult decisions on, and lots of areas like the health service or schools where I want to put even more money in. But unless you've got a strong economy, creating the revenue, it's just a childish wish list. We're trying to do our best to get the balance right between responsible public finances and investing in some of those crucial areas you discussed.
You choose to sacrifice tens of thousands of disabled people for the sake of that. This is the sixth richest country in the world. It is a choice that people make. In Scotland, we have a block grant, and they still manage to create a health service which functions. They still manage to create a care service which functions. And you are choosing to sacrifice us.
Why won't you scrap HS2 and give $5 billion to the disabled instead? Why won't you do that? It's not something anybody wants. It's only going to benefit your rich friends and help them to get to Leeds 10 minutes quicker. You know, it's a very simple funding pot that you could just get it.
£13 billion a year in foreign aid and invested in
absolutely.
Giving away £91 billion.
And Labour's complicit in that too.
Okay, you need it. Sean,
and
you need a mic.
everybody.
Victoria, would you mind if I picked up on this? Because the woman there from Scotland raises a very important point about disability. Now, as a constituency MP, one of the things that happens is you're quite often the last port of call for people who come in and talk to you about their problems. I had a woman who came to see me who was living with dwarfism, and she'd been assessed with 0 disability points. They were taking away her car from her. And she told me, she said, I can't get my leg from the subway car to the platform. I can't climb the escalator because I can't reach the handrail. If they take my car away from me, they will force me out of the workplace and I will be on benefits. And that's the reality of the way some of these disability cuts are biting. It's immensely cruel.
Can I say something? Victoria, Victoria, can I just say, you know, we are a rich country. It is a question of what are our priorities. You know, what it seems to me that we need to be able to raise more taxation from corporations, from the richest, who have done very well over the last few years. And what we're asking for in the Labour Party is those with the biggest shoulders to pay some more. We can still raise corporation tax and be at the lowest rate of corporation tax in the G7. And we can raise money and look after the most vulnerable. What kind of society are we that doesn't do that?
Let me read hang on a minute. Hang on. Let me read some messages from people who are watching around the UK. Thank you. Alan on Twitter says, my brother is disabled. He is terrified of further benefit cuts and the dementia tax. He's not terrified of the IRA. Ian has texted to say, why should people be paying taxes for the whole of their life when in later life they need to sell their house for care?
Absolutely.
Tez via Facebook. The Conservatives are the only party worth voting for. Labour under Jeremy Corbyn is failing to hold voters and is going downhill fast. And one more, social care isn't just about an ageing population, says James on Twitter. It's also about giving people with disabilities independence and self-respect. Many thanks for those. Do keep them coming in wherever you are. In our TV audience general election 2017 debate this morning, we have talked about security, the NHS and social care. As you know, it is almost a year since the UK voted to leave the EU, setting off a chain of events which have led to this general election. And talk about Brexit dominated the early part of the campaign.
we will leave the European Union and take control of our money, take control of our borders, take control of our laws.
Only Labour will negotiate a deal that preserves jobs, access to the single market, and preserves rights and access, not plunge our country into a race to the bottom.
In June last year, we voted for a departure, but we did not vote for a destination. So I want you to have your choice over your future.
My message to people in Scotland, whether you voted Remain or to leave, is to vote SNP to strengthen our hand, to get a deal that does not sacrifice Scottish jobs and the economy.
UKIP goes into this snap election determined to hold the government's feet to the fire on Brexit. We will act as the government's backbone in these negotiations.
We're pledging to put Wales at the heart of the negotiations to leave the European Union so that the final deal reflects the needs of the Welsh economy.
Our election manifesto will not only include a ratification referendum, but it will make very clear that one of the options on the ballot paper is precisely the option to remain in the EU if that is what the people choose.
Is Brexit when it comes to your vote? Let's hear from our voters here today. Hello, good morning. Hi, it's you, you're on, good morning.
Hi, I'm Wendy from Milton Keynes.
Hi, Wendy.
And we will be voting UKIP. I do feel that because there are 1 million people more immigration coming into the country every 3 to 4 years, the population is growing so fast, and they keep pushing the pension age up and up and up for all of us. And they keep saying it's because people are living longer, but in actual fact, I think the real reason is because of the out-of-control immigration into the country.
Sorry, what's your name? Wendy. Does Wendy have a point? Hi, good morning.
Not to me, she doesn't. The day after the Brexit vote, I felt like I'd been gut-punched. And I have to say, 11 months later, I feel exactly the same. I'm an immigrant. I've been living here for 27 years. Since then, I've been told to back to Dublin.
Really?
I've been told you're not the kind of immigrant we want to get rid of, which I'm not sure which was worse, to be quite frank. I've been told that I'm not committed enough to being in this country because I haven't taken out British citizenship, despite the fact that I contribute politically, employ people.
What's your name, Liz?
Sorry, Liz, yes.
Liz. Wendy, is it all right if Liz stays in the UK?
Of course, we want immigration, but we just need to keep control of it because the country will run out of money in the end, and we won't be able to.
I'm doing my best to pay my taxes, Wendy, and I'm employing people who do that too.
Liz, Brexit is happening whether you like it or not. Who are you trusting?
I do hope not, but absolutely I'm voting Lib Dem. I absolutely think that we should have a vote on the terms of the agreement. And I do not understand if the people who voted Brexit think they are so right, why they are so scared of having a vote on the terms.
Okay, well let's have a show of hands. Just have a show of hands. Do you want a referendum on the final Brexit deal? Okay. I mean, out of this, it's totally unscientific, but that is a majority. You're not all Lib Dem voters in this room. I know that for a fact. The audience is balanced in that respect. So that's quite interesting. Somebody who had their hand up who said, yes, they do want. We've already heard from Liz, so perhaps someone else. Yeah, hi.
Hi.
You want a final say, do you, on the Brexit deal?
Well, yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes. Well, I mean, politicians, that's their job. They make policy, right? But it should be backed by the people, if that's what they want. And the vast majority of people should support it.
Who doesn't want another vote? Yeah. Do you have a microphone? Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm being nudged.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yes, sorry, I campaigned for Brexit, and I did so quite successfully in Stoke-on-Trent. I'm a lawyer. And the idea of Jeremy Corbyn negotiating a Brexit or engaging in some sort of cold Brexit, I think fills a lot of people with a lot of terror. I think that Theresa May is the right person to negotiate a Brexit. I think she's the right person to negotiate a Brexit, and also she's the right person to say she's got the courage to walk away. If you look at the Labour Party manifesto, they say they won't leave unless they've got a good deal. That is giving in your best card before you've even played it.
Do you have any concerns after we saw the change of heart over holding a snap general election, the change of heart over raising national insurance for self-employed people, and the change of heart over the social care policy, that if Theresa May is the person leading the Brexit negotiations, if she comes under a little bit of pressure, she might fold in Brexit
I think
talks?
Theresa May's primary concern, like the overwhelming majority of the Conservative Party, is to do the right thing. Sometimes you have to test policies. But if you're wrong, it's incredibly important to have the courage to say so,
Okay,
and also
that's
to
fair.
trim it. Not necessarily U-turn, trim it.
Okay, hi.
Hiya.
Go for it, you're on.
Hiya, my name's Jeff, I'm from Bedford. I've voted Conservative all my adult life, and this is the first time that I can't do it.
Why?
I can't stand Theresa May as a person. There's just something about her that I intrinsically don't like. My question is to the Conservative gentleman itself. After calling the snap general election, after we've started some Brexit negotiations and we've started to get a feel for those Brexit negotiations, realising that you can't get a good deal, have you called this snap general election, and have you created a manifesto that is marginalising the people that you would normally win your election to purposely lose this election, so you hand over Brexit to the Labour Party, who then have to deal with it? It's all too superficial. And then in 3 or 4 years' time, when Labour...
in terms of conspiracy theories, that's
No. Because then when in 3 or 4 years' time, Labour haven't got a good deal, suddenly the Tories ride back in on a white horse.
I'm going to come to the politicians in a moment when I've introduced them. The audience here, by the way, in Dunstable is balanced to represent a fair proportion of people voting for each party, as well as some undecided voters. Also with us, Dominic Raab, former Justice Minister for the Conservatives. Emily Thornberry, Labour's spokesperson on foreign affairs. Dick Newby, leader of the Liberal Democrat group in the House of Lords. John Nicholson is the SNP spokesperson on culture, media and sport. Suzanne Evans is the deputy chair of UKIP. And Will Moy is here. Will is from Full Fact. Will, what is Full Fact?
Full Fact is an independent fact-checking charity, so it's our job to pay attention to what everyone's saying here, get out the facts and figures. We're tweeting along, and I can chip in if you want me.
I do. Brexit, the Brexit bill, our Brexit liabilities, all sorts of figures that apparently Britain will have to pay when it comes to leaving the European Union. What kind of figure might be we looking at?
Well, the figures we've heard have ranged everywhere from about 20 billion to 100 billion pounds. So, as you can tell, they're all back-of-the-envelope calculations at the moment, and what's going to happen is they will be worked out in a political negotiation between us and the rest of the EU. The logic underneath it is that the EU is committed to paying for things, which the UK also signed up for when we're members. The argument is about how much of that is now our responsibility. So the UK government seems to accept that we're probably in for some of it, but how much is a massive political fight.
Okay. Let me ask all of you, Dick Newby for the Lib Dems, where would you find the money to pay our Brexit liabilities?
Well, Brexit costs the country. We're going to be poorer as a country if we leave, and if we're left without a deal, it will be catastrophic for some sectors of our economy. So here in this part of the world, Peugeot has a big plant. If we found ourselves without a deal and put tariffs on all the goods coming back and forward, making those vehicles, the impact would be disastrous.
Okay,
and
how would you pay our Brexit liabilities?
Well,
where would you get the money from?
The Brexit liabilities, compared to the overall cost of Brexit, are a relatively small part. Obviously,
sure, I'm just asking where you get the money from. Have you put any thought to it? That's all I'm asking.
What we want to do, as we've already discussed, we believe that the chance of getting a deal which is better than our current position is as near zero as makes no difference.
Okay,
and therefore,
all right.
the people should decide.
Okay. You're not going to answer that question, I understand. Yeah, go ahead, Suzanne Evans
First
from
of all,
UKIP.
Vic, if we get no deal, we revert to trading on World Trade Organization terms, and if there are tariffs they're talking about, that is a windfall to the Treasury of £12 billion.
But
we
not
will
if the
actually
economy,
be
not
quids
if the
in.
sector's collapsed.
The economy,
Do you think that
why
we've been
you're
making...
assuming that it's going to collapse? Come on, even the Financial Times this week has had to report that investment into the UK has not fallen as a result of Brexit.
Okay.
This scaremongering must stop.
No,
people voted for
people
Brexit,
need
and
to
it's
know
about time the Lib
what
Dems
the
woke up and got
likely
behind
outcome
it.
is going to be.
And I'm telling you,
okay.
a £12 billion windfall to the Treasury.
All right,
which we
Dominic
can
Raab,
use to,
to the Conservatives. It could be 50 billion, it could be 60 billion, it could be 25 billion, it could be 100 billion. Where will the government get the money from? Should the Conservatives
if there's a legal liability and no one can point to anywhere in the EU treaties where there is one, we would pay it because we're a law-abiding nation. But I don't think there is. I think this is an initial opening.
Well, Theresa May herself says in your manifesto the government will be willing to make a reasonable contribution and come to a fair settlement.
Well, sorry. This is an opening political posturing exercise by the EU, but of course there are mutual areas where we might want to contribute because there are mutual interests. For example, in terms of dealing with the migrant crisis in the Mediterranean, or making sure on justice and home affairs we contribute to some of those important law enforcement issues. But the bottom line is, the gentleman, I think, or the lady there said that these Brexit negotiations are going to be absolutely crucial. They will condition the economy, they'll affect how much revenue we've got to put into our public services, and in just 10 days' time, we've got a choice between ultimately two people to lead those negotiations. So what I would say is imagine that negotiating room in Brussels. Jean-Claude Juncker's there, Angela Merkel's there, some pretty tough cookies. Who do you want going in there to lead these negotiations, which are going to be pretty tough, and take Britain forward?
Donald Trump, somebody said. Hi. Yes, do introduce yourself.
Thanks, Victoria.
Hang on, we can't hear you if you're not on mic. Let's hear from this gentleman.
Thanks, Victoria. My name's Shahid Khan. I work for a global insurance company, and we have offices across the continent, so I have some understanding of the implications that the UK leaving the European Union will have. Dominic, as to your point about Theresa May sitting down with Claude Juncker, didn't he call her deluded just not so long ago?
Was it before or after lunch?
So let's not go down that path, okay? There are a number of...
Actually, sorry, sir, just to make the point, he made all sorts of unsavoury remarks. Jeremy Corbyn said, "Oh, we've got."
He may well have done, but your point was as to Theresa May, so that's the only one that we're going to talk about for now.
We're not going to be bullied, and he apologised for those remarks. That's what you get with a tough leader.
Sir, which party do you trust? Who do you want leading the Brexit negotiations?
I would prefer to have Keir Starmer leading the negotiations.
He's Labour's shadow Brexiteer. Okay.
I would welcome hearing from Emily further on this point as well, actually.
All right.
Because
well, let me ask Labour.
What does a good deal mean as far as we're concerned?
What is Labour's Brexit policy?
Our policy is that we want to have the same economic benefits outside the European Union as we have within the European Union. We're leaving the European Union, and what we need to do is we need to remain close, and we need to have two priorities above everything else. The first priority of any government must be the safety and security of its citizens, and the second priority must be the economy, because we are talking about people's living standards and we're talking about their jobs, and nobody voted to be poorer and nobody voted to lose their job, whether they voted to leave or to remain, and those are our priorities. And do you know what? There's a lot of kind of personal nonsense coming out of Dominic here, but the truth is that whether or not you, and you said it yourself, Theresa May has shown the Europeans, they put a bit of pressure on her, and she'll sway one way or the other. But Jeremy Corbyn, whatever one can say about him, they know that he is a principled man, and when he says he will do something, he will do it.
Where would you get the money from?
Again, it depends what the liabilities are. For example, we will be owning a lot of, as part of the European Union, we own a lot of the infrastructure within the European Union, so we would need to set that off. So there's a lot of negotiations down the path.
We'll come to you, John Nicholson, in just a moment. The gentleman behind you runs a business. Go ahead.
Michael, as a small business owner whose sales are totally in the common market, I must face the fact that the Conservatives' hard Brexit tariffs will make me uncompetitive and destroy my life's work in creating employment and a growing business. A vote for Labour, on the other hand, with their request to pay a little bit more tax, will mean that my effective total tax rate will go up to 90%. Hardly an incentive to work 16 hours a day with no holidays. From my despair, it was suggested to me that I transfer my business onto the continent where my customers will still see us as competitive and I will pay a lot less tax. Can the politicians suggest a reason why, as a sane person, I should not follow my advice and transfer my business to the continent?
Where would you consider? I mean, is this serious, Michael? You would seriously move?
I'm afraid I'm now in the final stages. I've already become non-resident, and as far as I'm concerned, this is absolutely going to destroy my life's work, so therefore I have no choice.
And how do you feel about potentially leaving the UK?
I have worked abroad many times, so with the deepest despair, because I mean, I'm English, I want to be here, but I can't survive.
Okay. Well, John Nicholson from the SNP, having heard Michael's story, his plight, as he puts it, what would you say? What do you say?
I've spent a bit of time in Germany recently because I sit on the House of Commons Select Committee and we're doing a Brexit report. And the thing that senior German Conservative politicians say consistently is how chaotic the Conservative government ministers here are in terms of preparation. You know that David Davis turned up to a House of Commons Select Committee and he said he hadn't priced the cost of leaving for the UK. So I think we're going to get a very tough Brexit deal. I think it's going to be terrible for the UK. And the reason, of course, that Theresa May is holding this election now is because she wants to silence opposition, because she knows when we know the details of Brexit, people are going to be furious.
Okay, I want a very quick word about immigration. Before we talk about the wider economy, Suzanne Evans, UKIP want to bring down net migration to 0 over the next 5 years. When one person leaves, you will let one person in.
No, that's not how it works. This one in, one out. Let me just put this absolutely straight. 0, it's about balanced migration. It's about 0 net migration to give our economy, our country time to recover, to give our public services time to recover. So it's basically saying over a 5-year period, we have approximately the same number of people leaving the country, and we know that's between about 250 and 300,000 every year, and the same coming in.
Okay.
So we'll still be inviting to Britain around about up to 300,000 people a year. And we'll choose the brightest and the best and the people with the skills that we need and the people who contribute to the economy and can look after themselves. It's the kind of thing that Labour politician Frank Field has been talking about for years.
But if Britain needs surgeons,
then we'll have surgeons.
We
Bring
will,
them in.
hang on,
absolutely. Yeah, because we'll also have, because the problem that we have at the moment...
So we won't have to wait for someone to leave, to emigrate, before you allow a foreign surgeon in.
It's rolling over a 5-year period. The way it's been...
What about fruit pickers?
Yeah, I'll talk about
bar
this.
staff?
Thank you, I'm so glad you mentioned this, John. Really pleased you mentioned this, because these are jobs that British people can do, and at the moment they're not doing them because they're being undercut in terms of wages by cheap labour being imported from overseas.
It's nonsense. This country needs immigration, and particularly in Scotland, we have a population that has always welcomed immigrants. We need immigration, and in fact, Michael Gove said that one of the advantages of Brexit for Scotland would be we'd be able to set our own immigration policy. We haven't heard much of that since.
Well, let me ask. Let me ask, because this is important.
Dick Newby from the Lib Dems and Emily Thornberry from Labour. The latest net migration figures are 248,000. Is that about the right level for you of the Lib Dems?
I don't think it targets the point. The point is what the economy needs. And the economy needs doctors, nurses, people working in the horticultural sector, people working...
So it could be more than that, it could be less than that, depending on what the economy needs.
Depending on what the economy needs.
Emily Thornberry of Labour, 248,000, is that about the right level for you? Would you like more? Would you like fewer?
I don't think that it's... I think the country is fed up with politicians putting forward arbitrary targets and then failing to reach them. I think they're fed up with being lied to about this. I think the truth is that we're leaving the European Union, we're going to need to have fair rules and manage migration. And what we need to do is we need to balance the needs of our economy with the needs of our communities. Of course we need to have immigration, of course we need to have fair rules, and it needs to be managed.
All right. Dominic Raab, we know the Conservatives are promising again to bring net migration down to the tens of thousands. Which Europeans are you going to turn away?
Which Europeans? Well, not a single nation, we're going to say that. Look, the reality is, in the last year, we've seen net migration come down by 25%. We're starting to get a grip on it, but Brexit creates the right opportunity for controlled migration. We want to get the best for the economy, and there is a huge area between open-door immigration, which we had under the Labour Party, and closed-door migration. And so what we'll have... What we'll have, Victoria, is flexible, sensible visa arrangements so we get the workers we need, particularly the high-skilled ones. What we're not going to bring in is wholesale, cheap labour, which puts strain on housing, strain on public services and undercuts labour in this country.
Right.
So that's the balance.
What doesn't make sense to some people is that you've always been able to control migration from outside the European Union, but that's not down to the tens of thousands either.
No.
No, look, it's been difficult, and some of the rules...
Maybe you can't do it.
Well, so, look, we've already got, in the last year alone, net migration down by 25%. We're introducing stricter access to things like housing in the NHS. We've got more checks on illegal immigration, like landlords and things like that. And Brexit creates a huge opportunity, not just because of the volume coming from the EU, but also because of the rules.
Let me bring in Will Moy from Full Fact.
Okay, so I mean, the immigration numbers everyone is quoting is right, and that has added up to about half of the population change we've had in recent decades has been down to immigration. Just picking up the point that Wendy made in the audience about the relationship with the pension age, the thing is people who immigrate tend to be young. So actually, they're probably not the ones responsible for why the pension age is going up. You often get immigrants coming in after they've received their education, working here, and then leaving again and going home, as it were, to be older.
And they're much less likely to apply for benefits than people born in this country, which is in fact
well, this is where it gets a bit more complicated. So there have been lots of different studies of the impact on the public finances of immigration, and there is no simple answer to that. It's a very hard thing to measure. Most of them say the overall impact on public finances is relatively small. It's probably in the order of a penny in a pound, and it's probably slightly good for the economy. We probably end up with slightly more money for the government to spend.
Thank you. Gentleman over here, hello. You're a GP, I know.
Yeah, I'm a GP.
Hello.
Hiya. Your biggest risk isn't actually immigration, it's actually emigration. Doctors and nurses are actually leaving the UK to go to other countries.
Yeah,
Ben from West London. I think just picking up on one of Dominic's points, I think the opportunity for sort of visas and things also allows the opportunity to control sort of people coming in and out, and also safeguarding people as a mechanism for exploitation. Because I think I see myself in London walking around, I often wonder where there's quite a few people who are being exploited, people who are falling through the gaps of society. So I think that is something which is opening up the debate, and I think that's a worthwhile point.
Gentleman over here, thank you, Ben. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Taylor, and I'm a student at Edinburgh. I'd just like to say that would the Lib Dems want to have another referendum on EU membership, what the deal is, but as a student in Edinburgh, I think we should have another referendum on independence, because Scotland has obviously decided that it wants to go down a different path than the rest of the UK have, and I think that it is our democratic right that we have that choice to make a decision whether we choose to go down the, anti-immigration isolationist path, or whether we actually open ourselves up to Europe and the world, because they are our closest friends, and we need to work with them to create peace and prosperity in this world.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, let's talk more broadly about the economy in the UK. Yes, hello.
Yes, my name's Tariq Khamis. I'm a British Palestinian. I'm a small business owner in Luton. I really want to take up the way the Tories have been using the things about Brexit and just isolating it from everything else in the economy. The real fact is when you vote for this election and you're thinking about Brexit, you have to relate it to how this country will be. Do we want our NHS funded? Do we want schools to have the teachers to teach our children? Do we want to have a system where we're just going downhill? In the 20s and 30s, Roosevelt introduced a New Deal. They didn't have money because they were in a worse state than this country was at the time in the 20s. But they did the New Deal. They invested. And the one thing the Tories are doing is going down a downward spiral. And
so would you be happy to see, for example, Labour are promising to borrow £250 billion over, I think it's a decade, to invest in infrastructure. And you'd be happy to see that added to the borrowing because you think it's worth a price worth paying?
Well, the price you pay... The price you pay is growth in the economy, is actually having better wages, better investment, having the money there to finance the schools.
Emily Thornberry of Labour, how much
country.
would the economy grow if you invested £250 billion in infrastructure over a decade?
I think that that's a hypothetical that I can't, but I can tell you that austerity is not working. I can tell you that 7 years on,
But did you just, can I just, sorry, did you just pluck the 250 billion figure out of the air?
To pay for the crash in our economy, and that we have to have another way.
Why 250 billion? There must have been some kind of modelling.
Yes, of course there was. And what we did was that we looked at. So what we looked at was where we needed to invest in particular. And what we said was that we would have a fiscal rule that would be looked at by the Office of Budget Responsibility. We would make sure that when we were investing in the economy, that was resulting in growth. That would mean that we would be able to cut back on our debt, and that over the period of Parliament, we would actually start cutting back on the deficit too. In the end, there has to be another way than this. We cannot just carry on with this decline.
All right,
there is another vision, and that's what our vision
Dominic
is.
Robb, what is the current national debt?
I tend to think in terms of the deficit, but it's...
I'm asking about the debt.
I'm, off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
Let me tell you, it's 1.7 trillion. What was it when the Conservatives came to power in 2010?
Well, you don't get the debt under control. I don't know. But
let me tell you, it was 1 trillion.
But look, we've done this.
Hang on a minute. Are you shocked that after 7 years of a Conservative government, you've added £700 billion to the country's debt pile?
No, so Victoria...
You're not shocked?
Sorry, Victoria, can I answer your question, or are you just going to harry me and not allow me to answer it my own way?
Are you shocked?
Until you get control over the deficit, you're not going to get the debt coming down.
Absolutely right.
We will do that by next...
Understand that.
Well, hold on. I'm not sure everyone knows how this works. You may. And that starts to happen from next year. We've got the deficit down from 152 billion pounds to 52 billion. And for all the talk of austerity harming the economy, 3 million new jobs created since 2010. We've taken 4 million of the lowest paid out of income tax, and income inequality is lower than it was in 2010. So all of this pessimism going to hell in a hard cart. No, actually, well, let's address that. Real wages have been rising since September 2014. We've had an uptick in inflation, but the OBR and the Bank of England expect it to come down next year. So actually, we've made huge progress since 2010.
So the deficit will be paid off by next year, did you say?
No, I didn't say that.
No, I'm just trying to hit...
I said debt starts to come down from this year, okay, from next year.
No, it's projected to go up.
No.
Over the next 12 months.
No, the debt will start to come down, and the deficit has come down from 152 billion to 52 billion. Okay. We inherited an economic situation, the worst recession since the war, the worst budget deficit. Do not go backwards at this election. Go forwards.
Hello.
Well, that's very childish.
Hang on, let's hear from a voter.
Excuse me.
Sorry, go on.
Excuse me. The last administration, the last Labour administration, actually wasn't the Chancellor left a note on the table saying no money left? All right. So that's what we're trying. We've got to have somebody that actually knows how to balance the checkbooks, and also. I get it. We've got to have investment. We've got to have some investment. We've also got to have an air of where we know that we're going to be spending money that's going to make us money, but not just spend it profitably or without actually having any return.
Lady over here, hello. Good morning.
Hello.
No, you can't. Hang on. We can't hear you if you don't have a microphone. Go ahead.
I'm Marion. I'm retired.
Hi, Marion.
I'm now chief childminder to the family.
Okay.
I just want to say, if things are improving so much under the Tories, why are so many people using food banks?
Yeah. Do you want to respond to that?
Victoria?
Hang on. No, go on, Mark. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me? I mean, like you said about food banks. Also, like you said, you're the main child carer. This is what people have to do. If it weren't for our parents, like my children's grandparents, their grandparents, we wouldn't be surviving. If it wasn't for them, their help, then you look after your kids, so you're looking after their grandchildren. So you are, this is, this is the cost.
Some people think
we are subsidising it.
Life is really tough under the Conservatives.
And look, in terms of the food bank issue, and I've studied the Trussell Trust data, what they tend to find is the typical user of food bank is not someone that's languishing in poverty, it's someone who has a cash flow problem episodically. No, it's true. Well, that is what the Trussell Trust data says.
It's not what they say, John.
It is.
I go to food banks all the time.
No. Sorry, Victoria, can I finish the point?
Outraged by you saying
that.
They wouldn't.
And what we've done Because a lot of people on low and middle incomes are feeling the pinch, as we've taken 4 million of the lowest paid out of income tax altogether. The average basic rate taxpayer keeps £1,000 each year more than they did in 2010, and we've introduced the national living wage, and we're trying to make sure we've got the economy that creates the jobs and the wages, and make sure people keep more of the money they keep.
Just to clarify, Dominic, you're telling the country here in this programme that the Trussell Trust, who deal with poverty, told you personally that the problem with food banks wasn't people who are on the breadline, but people are having cash flow problems. I'm dying to hear from them when they hear that you've said that.
Can you just wait? What they do is they keep data that they update quarterly and then annually on the reason people are coming to their food banks, and that is what I'm citing.
Not my experience of food banks.
We'll go and read the data rather than shooting it off the...
There are even people in work using food banks because their salaries haven't increased.
Exactly.
People aren't able to save any money.
Exactly.
People are in crisis. People who are on low wages, people who are on benefits are actually having to use food banks. Do you think anybody in this country should have to use a food bank? We are the 6th richest country in the world. It's an absolute disgrace that anybody has to go to a food bank. And you sit there trying to convince us why people have to use them. It's a disgrace.
I can hear Emily Thornberry from Labour agreeing with the lady who's speaking right now. But the IFS, we've quoted them earlier, they also point out that if Labour were to win this general election, the poorest 30% of households will suffer a significant hit to their incomes because of cuts to benefits, many of which you are not promising to reverse.
We are going to raise the minimum wage to a proper living wage.
Are you going to reverse
so that those people,
cuts to child tax credits?
So those people who are in work and who are getting benefits as well will get a pay rise.
Are you going to reverse cuts to child tax credits?
We have got £2 billion each year over the 5-year period of a government.
Are you lifting the freeze on those working age benefits?
I am trying to answer you, Victoria, really I am.
I'm giving you specific cuts that the Conservatives are going to make, and I'm asking you, are you going to reverse them?
We have £2 billion set aside for each year over a 5-year period to reform the benefit system and to make sure that we stop cuts like we've talked about specifically the bedroom tax. You're getting rid of the bedroom tax.
The IFS has taken that into account.
And the reason that we've set this money aside is because we need to look again at the benefit system and the unfairness, the clear unfairness that we've heard talked about today. Nurses should not be going to food banks. People should not need to rely on food banks. As the lady behind me says, you know, we are one of the richest economies in the world. This is not right.
All right, Will Moy from Full Fact. What about the figures of people using food banks and the potential relation to those who are on benefits and who have been sanctioned?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's very hard to say in broad terms exactly why people are using food banks. Obviously, it's because they need food at the simplest level. There are about 1.2 million uses of food banks a year at the moment. That translates into people using it more than once. One of the things driving food bank use, according to research done, I think, by Oxford University, was that in areas where benefit sanctions go up, then food bank use goes up. When benefit sanctions go down, food bank use goes down. Now, that's not to say it's all about benefit sanctions. We don't have good evidence for that. We do have good evidence that that is part of the picture.
Okay. Hang on. The IFS, when it looked at Labour's, the fact that Labour would still mean that the poorest 30% of households would suffer a significant hit to their incomes, also looked at your tax and benefit changes, the Conservatives, Dominic Raab, and they said, with the benefits freeze, cuts to child tax credits and the rollout of the less generous universal credit, 3 million working families will be £2,500 a year worse off. How is that helping the just about managing?
Well, look, we've had to make difficult decisions, I don't deny that, but what you've also got to take into account is two things. The dynamic effect on the economy of making sure you're firing on all cylinders, creating jobs, improving productivity, because that's ultimately what pushes wages up, and then letting people keep more of their own money, either through the national living wage or the extension of the income tax personal allowance. And we've seen huge progress since 2010. But I don't pretend for a moment there aren't difficult decisions, and that's why I want to keep it going. But the raw truth is, if you go to this childish wish list that Jeremy Corbyn has put out, which is not funded, we'll go back to the perilous state of the public finances in 2010, even worse.
Okay. Is there anybody here who is not going to vote in the general election in 10 days' time? Anybody here? Gentleman here? Not really, that's good. Hi. Good morning.
Can I speak?
Yeah, there's two of you actually, but go on, you ladies
I want to
first.
speak all this time. Basically, all of this comes down to money, and we are squandering our money by giving it to foreign aid and NASA.
Absolutely right, yes.
So,
are you going to vote?
No matter, I don't know whether I'm going to vote or not, because it seems to me that no matter what party is in government, they are squandering money left, right and centre, and they always have done.
Let me ask this gentleman here.
Will cut the foreign aid budget. We're the only party going into this election that will cut the foreign aid budget and promise not to put a single penny on tax.
Shame on you.
Well, gentleman here is going to explain why he's not going to vote.
We're giving money to
hang
Brazil.
on, Suzanne
They've got
Evans.
their own
Hang on.
foreign aid programme. Why are we doing that when
hang
people
on.
are starving?
Good morning.
This is what I'm talking about, really. I don't know. It's just like, it seems like no one really is encouraging me to trust what they're saying. All of you are bringing up some valid points, I guess. But from my perspective, it's all about who I think I can trust with the country. And if I'm honest, I mean, Jeremy Corbyn seems like a really nice, genuine guy, got some good things that he wants to put in place. As well as that, there's some other parties that have some really good things to put in place. But whether it's going to really affect me personally, I don't know. So I'm not convinced by anyone. So
fair enough. Over here, hi.
Hi, Andrea Simpson.
Andrea, are you
Andrea
going to
Simpson.
vote?
I was.
Excuse me, if you haven't got a mic, please don't. Go ahead, Andrea.
I was thinking, actually, originally of possibly this time lending my vote to Theresa May because of Brexit. But unfortunately, because of the social care things and her small coterie of people she has around her who brought out this manifesto, I'm so disillusioned now that it may be that I decide that I'm going to vote for none of the above.
Okay. Can I introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, can I introduce you to Helen Pankhurst, who is the great-granddaughter of Emmeline Pankhurst. And as you know, the granddaughter of Sylvia Pankhurst, leading lights of the British suffragette movement. Hello, Helen.
Hello, everybody. Thank you
for
being here, and thank you for this engaged discussion. It's really, really interesting. You know, these are such difficult issues and so emotive. But I think the solution is not to not vote, for all the reasons that, in a way, I represent, and with that very positive response that you had, which is an epitome of why we need to value how difficult it has been to get here. And we're holding that baton at the moment, and we need to hand it on to the next generation. And we can't just say it's too complicated, it's too difficult, we're not going to do it. And I think, you know, as individuals, right now, it's a bit like being in a jigsaw puzzle where everything has been strewn out there, and we are individual bits of that jigsaw puzzle, and we either don't form a collective, we don't form part of the democracy, or our little bit, our little colour, our little values all slot in. And maybe we don't like the overall picture, but our little voice in there, it's counted, it's measured. So please, for the sake of the past, for the sake of the present, for the sake of the future generations, and for being part of that collective, that one moment when we're asked to really be part of our democracy, vote.
Absolutely.
I personally just feel like either way it's a roll of the dice. That's what I have to say.
It doesn't have to be, and it's particularly important that young people should vote, because one of the great things...
And I'm not saying that young people shouldn't vote either.
Can I just say, one of the great things about the independence referendum that we had in Scotland was whatever side you went for in the end, we got a huge amount of voter registration. Young people were motivated in a way they'd never been before. My own constituency, 91% of people voted. That's democracy in action.
Okay. Andrea, hang on. Andrea, how do Andrea respond to Helen Pankhurst?
Right, well, first of all, where I'm in Harpenden, we'll get a Conservative MP. So that's very difficult if you want to vote elsewhere. In the referendum, it was one vote, counted for something. I'm hoping one day I'll be able to vote for a government of unity. I don't know how bad things will get, but there are good points everybody has, and I'd like to be able to vote for a government where we can really make change and really tackle problems.
Can I respond to that? Yeah. So I think that, firstly, the points that have come out here about there being too much point scoring and not enough collaboration, really
exactly
needs to
what
be
I'm trying to
held
say.
and needs to be listened to by the parties. So to some extent, fair enough, argue it out now. But the most important thing is that down the line, these decisions affect all of us. And I think Parliament is at its strongest and at its most effective when we talk to each other across our geographical differences and across our political differences.
Okay.
I also think, just a little bit more, I think it's the people who are least empowered, who are least likely to vote, and I think that perpetuates a cycle that's problematic. I think if you feel passionately that your vote doesn't count, then look at things like what other, the Greens not losing their deposit, gender issues, making sure we have representation, making sure that we do other things beyond that one collective moment, and the activism beyond it can be so powerful. Even having your voice in events like this and sharing that is so powerful. But please vote.
Thank you very much, Helen. Okay. We haven't got long left. We're going to try and talk about housing in the minutes that we do have left. The cost of buying a home in the UK has never been higher. Many of you feel priced out of the market. Theresa May herself said that Britain's housing market is broken, and just before a general election, all the parties pretty much are promising to build more houses, as parties do, just ahead of a general election. Both the Conservatives and Labour, you'll know, have failed to meet their own targets in the past once they got into power. Some quick views about housing around the room. Hello.
Hi, my name is Rosanna Campbell. I'm from Edinburgh and I'm 18 years old, and housing means a lot to me. I became homeless when I was 16. Just due to difficult circumstances, and I found it really difficult to get a house, and I'm now 18 and I've still not got my permanent house yet, but I'm getting it this year. But I've witnessed friends of mine that have been younger than me and not had anywhere to stay. They've been on the street, they've not got anyone to look after them. And what I want to ask you guys as a party, do you think that's fair? Would you allow your children to be on the street and not have anybody to support them?
Let's hear.
You just need to sort it.
I'm going to get a snapshot, if I may, Rosanna. Yeah, hi. Go for it, Mark.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, housing, yeah, like I said, about affordable housing. A lot of it seems to be for investors, bringing in people.
So you feel priced
social
down?
housing is not, the numbers in Luton, the social housing. We sold off a building to Milton Keynes for their homeless in Luton. So we've still got the same housing problem there, so that the numbers don't come down there. Also, building on Greenland,
it's an issue. I'm going to hear from this guy behind you because he's been patient as well. Hello. Cheers, Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a student in London, and I really think the problem is with landlords. I feel that they are buying more and more properties and becoming richer and richer at our expense, and it's making it so hard for any students to ever be able to buy a house. I think this is a huge issue when I can see figures saying that you'll be 40 before you own a house. I'm 20 now. That's double my age, and I'm just worried coming up uni with a huge debt. What will I be able to do?
Okay. Right, we've only got a few minutes left, so let's hear what politicians are promising when it comes to building more houses and affordable houses. I'm going to limit you, if I may, to 30 seconds each. Dick Newby of the Lib Dems.
Can I just deal with Rosanna's point? I think for young people, there are a number of things that need to be done to make sure that they're not homeless in the way that she says. A couple of things. We need to restore housing benefit for 18 to 21-year-olds, a Tory cut, and we need to, the state needs to give a loan to young people to have a deposit for their first flat.
All right, UKIP say 100,000 new homes a year, but only for younger people. What's your cut-off?
It's about modular housing. Young people need to be able to get onto the housing ladder, up to 40, so you'll be fine, you've got 20 years. We can provide up to 100,000 homes a year that will cost less than £100,000, so affordable on someone of a national average wage. They're modular homes, and the great thing is they can be built very, very quickly on brownfield sites where it's close to infrastructure. And we can also take the £1 billion we'll get back from the European Regional Development Fund to create factories, to train people, to build these homes where the jobs are needed, and then build them where homes are needed.
Emily Thornberry, Labour say 1 million new homes over the next 5 years. 2 million new homes were built under 13 years of new Labour. What will be different this time?
We mean this. We mean this. We have got a manifesto that has been costed, and we mean to build 1 million homes over 5 years. Let me just finish. With 100,000 of those being affordable homes to either buy or to rent. We have listened to the younger generation. We are going to do something about rent control so that people are not exploited, and we are going to be helping young people coming out of university, because we see no reason why they should be having to come out of university up to their eyeballs in debt. They are beginning their lives, and they should be given a chance. And they should be given a chance to be able to set up their own families and not have to wait until they're 40. If you're renting until you're 40, when will you ever set up a family home?
We haven't got much time. We really haven't. 30 seconds.
300,000 more affordable homes since 2010. We want to build another 400,000 by 2020. And one of the key things we're saying is we want to support the councils and the housing associations to build more homes, both for rent, but also with an option to buy after a certain period of time. And that's the plan that we've set out, and anyone can go online, look at it in further detail in the manifesto.
Okay.
One of the my family are my parents were the first generation to own a house. They only ever rented before that. I know how important this is. One of the great tragedies was the right to buy scheme and what happened to the cash, because both Labour, sadly, and the Conservatives failed to invest that money, and that was an enormous missed opportunity, and it's created the tragedy that we now see with people like this guy over there unable to buy his own home. We need more social housing.
Okay. Will Moy from Full Fact, do you know how many houses we need to build per year to keep up with demand?
The best estimate we have is between 240 and 250,000 new homes a year.
Okay, all right. No, we haven't got time. I'm so sorry. I'm going to read these messages. Daniel on Twitter says, the Conservatives and UKIP will deliver the Brexit that was promised. We will be completely out of the EU. Labour want half in, half out. Barbara on Facebook, again on Brexit. Yes, the public should get a vote on the final Brexit deal. Never trust a Conservative. They will make sure their millionaire chums will be all right before the public. Graham on Twitter says, Labour left us skint 7 years ago, and with their policies, and they left the Conservatives to pick up the pieces. Expect the same again. Niam via Twitter says, what is clear is that Labour care about the many, while the Tories care about the rich and big business. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Do give yourselves a big round of applause. Thank you for your time today.